And Dr. Jackson, this might be a question for you as the president of the board. The amendment proposal that was put forth that will go to the membership in February, it's pretty, I guess, rigid in terms of, it has to have no more than 64 teams in a class. Would the board prefer having more flexibility and not be, beholden to a certain number?
Well, thank you for the question. I appreciate that. Anytime that you're making decisions that are centered on people, on students, on staff members, flexibility is always something that is to be valued because every situation is so very unique. However, the board, particularly when it comes to bylaw amendments, have to act on what comes to us from our member schools because we are a member-driven organization and we use those words, but we really live those words. And so the bylaw amendment that came to us from our member schools stated and used the 64 number. And so as we move forward with this possibility for our member schools, the one sentiment that came from our board is the desire to encourage our high school principals, who are the constituted voting members of the association, to make sure they cast a vote, either yes or no, but to ensure that they cast a vote. In the past, we've had situations where we had some schools that didn't cast a vote for a potential change to the bylaws. And so regardless of how they vote, I think the board is most interested in hearing from our membership and encouraging our high school principals to ensure that they cast that vote. The number of classifications, as I'm sure you're aware, has been an ongoing conversation for many years with regards to education-based athletics in our state. And so if nothing else, I'm glad that we're at least moving forward with the possibility of making a change to the number of classifications, or at least hearing from our member schools and what they may want to do. And so as they have the opportunity to contemplate this possible amendment to our bylaws to change the number of classifications, it will be interesting to hear from our member schools. But on the other hand, I will say about the amendment, I did appreciate that it was open-ended in that if the number of schools increases in the future, it addresses that. And so it at least does give some flexibility that way. But we work with what comes to us from our member schools, and that is what we received. And so we look forward to moving forward on an issue that many have raised for several years.
I know it's not in the actual bylaws, but are there any guidelines or anything specific that the board has discussed in terms of what that would do to playoffs, conferences, that kind of stuff?
Well, I tell you, really, at this time, that question is probably really early because we still need to hear from the member schools. In individual conversations, certainly we imagined what that might look like, as I'm sure everyone who's taken a look at that bylaw amendment, including you, have imagined what that might look like, because I know that you look at that quite closely, and we appreciate the work you do with that. So as a board, though, we have not begun to address what might happen because we want to first hear from our member schools what they would like to happen. I mean, it is well within the realm of possibility that our member schools would say, we want to continue on it the way we have, and we would continue to have 4 classifications. But if this bylaw amendment does pass the membership, then certainly there'll be a ton of work that our staff will be asked to do, to be tasked with, to imagine what will conferences look like, what will playoffs look like, and all the many ramifications across the sports that the High School Athletic Association governs.